So, we're going to talk today about how I built my consulting business using the five pillars. For me, it was 2018. I'm heading into 2019. I'm looking at people and I'm looking at New Year's resolutions. I'm looking at direction. And the goals I started to set for myself, I realized a lot of people failed. And that got me really thinking about life because why were so many people failing? And the thing that came to conclusion was that most of them did not have a North Star, didn't have a direction, didn't have a place they wanted to go. For me, that was very, very important. And the way I figured that out was I started to set goals for myself. And I set three goals for that year. It was to run a marathon, to pass all four sections of CPA, and it was to start a business. I could only imagine which one you would guess I didn't pass. It was the four sections of the CPA. That one I ended up failing. And I share that because it's okay to fail. It's just better for us to have a starting direction and at least know where we're going. So shoot for the moon, land on the stars, as some would say. And what ended up happening was I went to a conference in early 2019 and everyone there was selling and I had nothing to sell. And I realized that I needed to start selling something. And I started to realize that I was going to help people with financial literacy, debt management, student loans, credit cards, etc. And what ended up happening was I told some buddies about it and they ended up referring me a client. And I got my first client. I was so excited. I was over the moon, as some of you are now that you're watching. Get your first client, you're so pumped up. I don't even know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to try to provide you value. And what I decided to do, because we were talking about financial literacy, was to provide real rapport building skills, which has been kind of my baseline for my entire business. It's how do you build a deep, deep rapport with your client so that you can learn from them and see what their true goals are. And the way I created this was the five pillars, which was a 5-year vision, a 1-year vision, and then we would touch on the five pillars, which are mental health, physical health, community service philanthropy, spirituality, and relationships. And then we'd come up with 3 to 5 12-week goals and then goals of the week. And the thing that got me on this was I remember it was 2018, a little bit earlier that year. I was on vacation, I was on a cruise. And I just remember listening to Matthew McConaughey talk about this idea of what is a successful life? What does a true life look like? And to me, that true life was something where you have multiple areas of life. It's not just, we define the word success as monetary success. We don't ever think about it as experiential success or relationship success or community service success. We only think about it through the financial lens, and I think that's really limiting. I think there's a lot of us in this day and age where we can grow so much more than that. So whenever I meet with clients in the beginning, and this is how I built my business, and I think you guys can utilize this holistic view for yourselves, is to focus on what are your five pillars? What are the steps that are going to get you to where you need to go? And part of it is an introspection because we all follow the leader. The CEO is the leader, and they're the ones that need to have their head on straight and have the best mindset and have the best perspective. The way to build that is by knowing what your mental health's like, knowing what a 10 might look like in that area, knowing what your physical health is like, knowing what your community service is like, knowing what your spirituality and your relationships. And when you sit there and really, really think about it, you start to realize, where am I in this? Where do I fit into all of this? You're all of it. You're all of it at one time. And I know that can be stressful. I know that can be scary, but that's where the growth occurs. There's going to be times in your life where you sacrifice mental health. There's going to be times where you sacrifice physical health. You might be having a child, something might be happening. There's different times and different eras for different things. The point is to never fall off because the journey is the destination. We're constantly looking on how to improve our lives and improve the things we want to. So we have to always realize that these pillars are always going to be our North Star. And the way I work with clients and really think about this in the consulting realm is that you have to know the vision. You have to start off with, what is that 5-year vision? And when I ask people, it's always, what does life look like in 5 years? Like, you call me, what's going on in your life? And most people will say a financial thing. They might say a relationship thing. They might say a child. They might say kids out of the house, but they usually forget to dream. And that's the biggest thing that I think we need to remember is that in regard to all these five pillars, that we're constantly living a fully successful life, a fully integrated life, a full life where we're together and we're unified. Because the challenge is with a lot of these, they've been put on the sidelines for so long. We are not working on these on a regular basis. And I can tell you that because it's really, really hard. I work with clients all the time, and constantly pillars get pushed to the side. And constantly we're working to better ourselves. And we try to figure out what it is to get there. So as we dive into each of these pillars, we're going to start to realize where this can actually help us, where what little tidbit can get us to the next level. So let's start off with mental health. Mental health is the reason that was chosen is because actually one of my college roommates and fraternity brothers actually passed away, and he decided that life wasn't for him. And Jamal Naganja. And the reason that happened was really eye opening to me because at that point in my life, I was 18. No, I was probably 20, 21, about to graduate, senior year, second semester. And I didn't realize mental health was a challenge for me. I knew people talked about it, but I didn't realize how important it was. And for me, in regard to the coaching, I always wanted to ask people what their mental health was. And it's a weird question, but it's a super important one because you don't know where people are at. And that's why I always leave the grace of, hey, this is only for today. We're only doing this rating for today. So it's important for us to realize that when you have that mental health unlock, when you have that availability to share that, hey, I'm really stressed out today, or I'm doing really well today, or I'm excited today, or I'm pumped, or whatever it is, you don't have to identify your feelings as your emotions as your identity, but it's important for us to be authentically who we are. And then the big thing, the big takeaway for me that's always been is taking that pillar and then defining what a 10 is for that area. Because how many of us in our life have set a goal financially, and then what happens? You literally set it financially, you blow past it, and then you're like, I need more. How many have I done that with sports? How many have done that with video games? How many have done that with miles run, everything? We do it constantly. For some of these, we do require us to have a true 10 because not every day is going to be great, but at least we can define what a great day looks like. And that definition gives us clarity to unlock what we really truly do want to unlock. As we're going through this, we start to realize that mental health is an important one. Because if your mental health is right, you're going to start to show up better, right? As a business owner, as a leader, as a sales leader, you need to be able to compartmentalize and realize who you are versus what you need to do. The second pillar is physical health. Why physical health? Because the more energy we have, we create energy. So whenever I do a talk, I always make the room do jumping jacks, push-ups, stand in a superhero pose, do something. The reason is because the higher our energy is, the better we're going to show up, the better we're going to be, and the more we're going to be engaged because we have a level of energy. A lot of us forget about that energy. We have three sources of energy. We have energy, money can be energy, time can be energy, but you have to realize that energy is always created inside of you. Time, there's no more of that created, and money's infinite, but you need to attract it with the value that you're creating. So to do that, you have to have the proper energy levels. You have to be able to help people. You have to be able to provide them value. And as we're going through that, you start to realize that physical health is the key to possibly one, the mental health. And then two, it's another really great piece to your mindset and how you're thinking properly. So when you leave space for yourself and you're working out and you're sweating and you're doing all the right stuff, you're going to start to think a little bit differently. You're going to have a little bit more of confidence. You're going to think you can accomplish more. And that's what it's all about. It's about you going after your goals and doing what you believe to be possible. The third pillar is community service. Now you might ask, why community service? What does that have to do with anything? It's the fact that when this was built, it was COVID. We were all separated. And now more than ever, everyone feels like they're on their own mission and they don't realize that we constantly need a community. We constantly need people to work with. We constantly need to help each other. You know what I mean? It's not an easy world. There's a lot going on, and community service is something that's overlooked constantly. So when I've been asking my podcast guests, the people I interview about community service, a lot of them might mention sometimes, not always, maybe a one annual event. And I remind them that community service can show up anywhere. It can show up when you're just helping out. When you go to the food store and you pick up an extra case of water and drop it off for the homeless, it's $4. Like, community service is the kids are trying to raise money and you give them a couple bucks. Community service is helping your friend move. Community service is donating to an organization. There's many different ways to do community service, but I just want you to start thinking about how you can show up and what is actually meaningful to you, because most of us don't realize that. The fourth pillar is relationships. And relationships are a confusing one because there's business relationships, personal relationships, friend relationships. And the thought is, how do you take inventory of who's important to you? The whole underlying thing of all this is that we need to get intentional with our life. The more intentional we are with our life, the more life we can have. So there's many people that you hear stories where they had 30 and 40 lives. Not actually, but they just traveled and did and created so much. And you think, how could that have happened? One, opportunities came their way, and two, they were super intentional. They got the most of their time done. And that's what this planning phase is. Right now, we're articulating how to become a business consultant. We're articulating how to take inventory of what you want and who you want to create so you have clarity in your life and you can go out there and do it. So it's important for us to realize it's not just a do this, do that, do this, do that. Everyone's got a different interest graph of what they want out of their life and how they want to show up and how they want to live. So it's important for us to have relationships and realize who's in our A group, who's in our B group, who's in our C group. Not saying that they're not good or bad, but some of them are, we prioritize others, we prioritize what's needed, and we constantly are growing. And we have to be intentional, otherwise you'll never have your relationships grow and foster. And that can be a real challenge for us. So it's important for us to realize, who do we want in our relationships? What kind of people do we want in our life? And how are we going to continue on that? And then the fifth and final pillar is spirituality. And spirituality is a really, really interesting one because it's not just about religion. It's about how you see the world and how you see the interconnectedness of us all. And I want people to realize that it's not that one's good or bad, and I don't believe that. It's more that we start to realize that there's times where we're all together. And there's special moments and there's luck that occurs that might be outside of our control. It might be outside of what we know. And we might have gotten lucky. Because the truth is, in business, there's a whole lot of luck. There's a lot of putting yourself out there and there's a lot of rejection, but there's a lot of luck. And what comes down to the truth of that luck is you taking the first step, is you implementing the action and you taking that step. So you're on this YouTube video right now, or you're on this podcast right now. That signifies to me that you're taking action. And I love that because you might want to be a business consultant. You might want to learn how a consultant thinks. And the truth is, it's holistically. The truth is, it's not one for another. It's not this for that. It's this and that. And it's how to integrate and create your life so it is optimized for you, because our life is not always going to be the way we want it. So sometimes we have to shift where we're at and figure out what winning looks like. And the way we do that is we have our vision, we have our North Star, we have our 1-year actions, and then we have our 5 pillars. And we see where we're at today and then what a 10 might look like in those different areas so we can define winning for ourselves. It's so important that we do that because we don't always know what we have to offer. So we have to sit there and define. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come up where we see the differences. You're going to want to figure out where the disparity is in those 3 to 5, in those different pillars. And you're going to find 3 to 5 things where you're like, hey, I might be at a 3, but I want to get to a 9. What's holding me back? Or you might be sitting there going like, okay, what are the actions I really want to create today? And you start to realize some of these, like some clients I have start talking about travel, how they really want to travel. And the first step would be, do you have a passport? No? Okay, let's get one of those. You know what I mean? And it's just this little area of like, hey, these are things that I've always wanted to do in my life and I haven't even thought about them. So I want this to be a space where you take time to plan. I was talking with my group, my coaching group recently, and we were talking about the idea of plan time versus action time. A lot of our life is constantly reactive and people coming into it. So texting, phone, all that kind of stuff. And there's very few time that's really proactive, especially planning time. How often are you sitting there taking an hour and a half, 90 minutes to just help yourself accomplish the goals you want? You're going to be taking 20 minutes to watch this video on how to become a business consultant and how I did it and what it was for me and what are the 5 pillars that really helped me excel. Because the truth is, I set goals for myself, and these pillars help me identify those goals and they help me stay accountable to them. So I want to give you one more piece of advice: the 90-minute framing. When you set a 90-minute goal with yourself, when you set a time with yourself to be intentional, to get leverage, to create the life you want, you're stepping into that next version of yourself. And I want you guys to start to think about, how often are you implementing that? How often are you actually taking those steps and doing that and making the difference? Because the truth is, we're all in a growth phase. We're all in a change, and we're all constantly changing. But whether we make the change for ourselves or people are making the change for us, we're going to have to change. It's the only constant in the world. So I want you to sit down, and I really ask you, please comment, message me, DM me on Instagram, Jordan F. Edwards, or send me an email, jordan@edwards.consulting, and let me know which pillar you want to work on the most. Is it the mental health, the physical health, the community service philanthropy, the spirituality, or the relationships? I'd love to hear it in the comment section, and I cannot wait for you guys to start diving in and really taking inventory of your life. Because once you have inventory, then you can take a step forward. Then you can decide what that future life might look like for you. Then you can start to see on paper what you're missing. Because I'm telling you, I've done this hundreds of times, and a majority of the clients I meet with, the biggest struggle they have is sitting there going, I don't even know I've never even heard some of these words before. I've never even thought about this. I just use my extra time and I relax. How do I optimize my extra time? And that's what we're looking at doing here. We're going to keep you clocked in. We're going to keep optimizing. And we get these videos from your comments. So from the comments that people leave, that's how we create the next video. So I appreciate you guys commenting. I appreciate you guys listening. And you keep clocking in. And I really appreciate the time. Thank you.